The microwave clock read 11:47 p.m. when I heard Lila's BMW purr into our driveway. I sat at our granite kitchen island, nursing my second glass of Cabernet and picking at the salmon I'd grilled for two. Her plate sat untouched across from me, the asparagus now cold and limp. Traffic must have been terrible, I muttered to myself, though we both knew the law firm was only 20 minutes away. Even with Boston's notorious construction, she should have been home hours ago. The front door opened with her usual theatrical flourish. Lila Kavanagh never simply entered a room, she made an entrance. Tonight was no different, except for the glow on her face. She looked radiant, like she'd just won a $1 million case instead of working late on discovery documents. "Matt, honey, you waited up," she said, kicking off her designer heels and padding across the hardwood in her stockings. Her voice carried that sing-song quality she used when she was particularly pleased with herself. Seemed like the husbandly thing to do. I took another sip of wine, studying her face. Something was different. Her lipstick was gone, her hair slightly mussed despite the obvious attempt to smooth it down, and that smell, expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from me, still wearing that satisfied smile. "I have something to tell you." Here it comes, I thought. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in new lingerie that I never got to see. I'd been suspecting for weeks, but part of me hoped I was wrong. "I spent the evening with Grant," she said, as casually as if she were discussing the weather. "We went to dinner, then back to his place. I slept with him, Matt, and I don't regret it." The wine turned sour in my mouth. Grant Foley, her boss, senior partner at Brennan, Foley and Associates, married father of two. The same Grant who'd been at our house for dinner parties, who'd shaken my hand and complimented my grilling skills while apparently planning to sleep with my wife. I set down my glass carefully, watching the red liquid swirl. "Well," I said finally, "that's honest of you. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." Lila blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. Yelling, maybe. Tears. Dramatic gestures. Instead, I cut another piece of salmon and chewed thoughtfully. "That's it?" she asked. "That's all you're going to say?" "What would you like me to say, Lila? Congratulations? Thanks for sharing?" She leaned back in her chair, studying me with those sharp green eyes that had first attracted me 15 years ago. "I thought you'd be upset." "Oh, I am. But screaming at you won't change anything, will it?" I finished my wine and stood up. Amazing how quickly salmon loses its flavor when you season it with betrayal. I scraped both plates into the garbage disposal and started loading the dishwasher. Behind me, Lila sat in silence, probably trying to figure out why her big confession hadn't gone according to script. "I'm going to bed," she announced finally. "We can talk about this tomorrow." "Sure," I said without turning around. "Sweet dreams." I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the bedroom door closing. I stood at the sink, hands braced against the granite countertop, letting the reality sink in. 15 years of marriage reduced to a casual confession over cold salmon. My phone buzzed. A text from Dave, my old college roommate. "Beer tomorrow? You sounded weird when you called earlier." I'd called Dave around 7, when Lila's assistant claimed she was in a meeting, but I could hear restaurant noise in the background. Dave had that sixth sense about trouble. Probably came from 20 years as a Boston cop. "Rain check," I texted back. "Things just got interesting." I poured another glass of wine and walked to my home office. If Lila wanted honesty, she was about to get a masterclass in it. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter. She'd been careless, probably still high from her evening with Grant. I glanced at the stairs, then opened it. No password, of course. Lila always said she had nothing to hide. The email thread made for fascinating reading. 3 months of increasingly intimate messages between my wife and her boss. Dinner dates, weekend conferences that never appeared on her calendar, and detailed discussions of hotel rooms and restaurant reservations. The most recent email was from this afternoon. Can't wait for tonight. Matt's making dinner, but I'd rather have you for dessert. L. Grant's response: Your husband's a lucky man. Too bad he doesn't know how lucky. See you at 7. G. I screenshot everything and emailed the files to myself, then closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. Upstairs, I could hear Lila moving around the bedroom, probably getting ready for bed like this was any other night. I sat in my office chair, staring at the photos on my desk. Our wedding day, looking impossibly young and happy. Vacations to Europe, anniversary dinners, Christmas mornings, 15 years of shared history, and she'd thrown it away for her married boss. But what bothered me most wasn't the affair itself. It was the casual cruelty of it. The way she'd told me like she was sharing office gossip. The complete lack of remorse or even basic consideration for my feelings. My phone rang. Dave. You okay, buddy? That text sounded ominous. Lila's having an affair, I said quietly. She just told me. Seemed proud of it, actually. Silence on the other end. Then, that witch. You need me to come over? No, I'm good. Just processing. Processing my rear. You should be furious. You should be throwing her stuff on the lawn. I laughed, surprising myself. That's not really my style, Dave. Well, your style better include a good lawyer. Don't let her take you to the cleaners. After we hung up, I sat in the dark office, thinking. Dave was right about one thing. I needed to protect myself. But throwing clothes on the lawn wasn't going to cut it. Lila was a lawyer, and a good one. She'd already thought this through, probably had her strategy mapped out. The house creaked around me, settling into its nighttime rhythm. Upstairs, my wife slept peacefully after confessing to adultery. In a few hours, she'd wake up expecting life to continue as normal, maybe with some convenient new arrangement that suited her needs. I opened my laptop and started making lists. Bank accounts, credit cards, property deeds, investment portfolios. After 15 years of marriage, our lives were thoroughly entangled. Separating them was going to require surgical precision. The clock on my computer showed 2:30 a.m. when I finally headed upstairs. Lila was curled up on her side of the bed, breathing deeply. She looked peaceful, innocent even. Hard to believe this was the same woman who'd casually destroyed our marriage a few hours ago. I brushed my teeth and slipped into bed, careful not to wake her. Tomorrow was going to be an interesting day. I woke up at 6:30 to an empty bed. Lila's side was cold, the sheets barely disturbed. Downstairs, I could hear her moving around the kitchen, probably making her usual breakfast smoothie before heading to the gym. The routine felt surreal. After last night's confession, I'd expected some acknowledgement that our world had shifted. Instead, Lila was following her normal schedule like nothing had happened. I pulled on running clothes and headed downstairs. She stood at the counter in her workout gear, blending spinach and protein powder. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail, makeup already applied. Even at 7 a.m., Lila Kavanagh looked like she could walk into a courtroom. "Morning," she said without looking up. "I'm meeting Sabrina at the gym, then heading straight to the office. Grant wants to review the Morrison case before the deposition." Grant. She said his name like it meant nothing, like she hadn't been in his bed 12 hours ago. "Sounds productive," I said, pouring coffee. "Big day planned?" "The usual. You?" "Oh, you know. The usual." I sipped my coffee, watching her drink her smoothie. "Question, though. About last night." She paused, the glass halfway to her lips. "What about it? Are we getting divorced? Staying married? Working it out? I'm just trying to understand the plan here." Lila set down her glass and turned to face me fully. In her heels, she was almost my height, and she used every inch to project authority. I don't want to get divorced, Matt. I like our life, our house, our friends, our routine. But I also like Grant. I'm hoping we can find an arrangement that works for everyone. An arrangement. We're adults. People have different needs. Maybe it's time we acknowledge that marriage doesn't have to be a prison sentence. I nodded slowly, like I was considering this profound wisdom. So you want to keep the house, the joint accounts, the social status of being Mrs. Kavanaugh, but also have the freedom to sleep with your boss. When you put it like that, it sounds selfish. Does it? I can't imagine why. She checked her watch, a Cartier I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. I have to go. Sabrina's waiting. We can talk more tonight. Sure thing. Have fun with Sabrina. Tell her I said hello. After she left, I sat in the quiet kitchen, drinking coffee and thinking. An arrangement, like I was a business partner instead of a husband. Like 15 years of marriage was just a contract she wanted to renegotiate. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. How you holding up? She wants an arrangement, I typed back. Apparently marriage is a prison sentence. Holy cow. You want me to arrest her for being a terrible person? Despite everything, I smiled. Dave had always been able to make me laugh, even in the worst situations. I spent the morning researching divorce lawyers, though I wasn't ready to pull that trigger yet. First, I wanted to understand exactly what I was dealing with. How long had this been going on? Was Grant the first, or just the latest? And most importantly, what did Lila really want? Around noon, I drove to Brennan, Foley and Associates. The law firm occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown, all marble and mahogany and intimidating legal degrees. I'd been there for office parties, knew the layout well enough. The parking garage was perfect for my purposes. Dimly lit, multiple levels, easy to move around unnoticed. Grant's silver Porsche sat in its reserved spot on level 2, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I'd brought a small tool kit and a bag of supplies. Nothing destructive, nothing that would cause permanent damage, just a little creative expression. The GPS tracker went under the rear bumper. I wanted to know where Grant spent his time. The glitter went through the air vents, ensuring it would circulate throughout the car's interior for months. The sardines went under the seats, opened cans wedged where they wouldn't be immediately visible but would definitely be noticed. I left a note on his windshield. Hope your wife likes seafood. A concerned citizen. The whole operation took less than 10 minutes. I was back in my car, driving home, when my phone rang. Matt Kavanaugh? Speaking. This is Jennifer at First National. I'm calling about your joint checking account. There was some unusual activity this morning. My stomach dropped. What kind of activity? A large withdrawal. $12,000. The transaction was authorized with your wife's card and PIN, but given the amount, we wanted to confirm. $12,000. Our entire checking account, plus a dip into overdraft protection. I didn't authorize that withdrawal, I said carefully. Would you like to dispute the transaction? Let me call you back. I pulled over and checked our account online. 0 balance. Lila had cleaned us out while I was playing pranks with sardines. My phone rang again. This time it was our credit card company, asking about several large purchases made that morning. Designer luggage, jewelry, a cash advance. Then the mortgage company called. Lila had contacted them about refinancing, claiming I was traveling and she needed to handle the paperwork alone. I sat in my car, watching traffic flow past, understanding finally dawning. This wasn't a sudden confession born of guilt. This was a calculated move. Lila had been planning this, probably for weeks. The casual confession, the talk about arrangements, it was all theater. She was trying to clean me out before I could react. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife's at the Ritz with my husband. Thought you should know. Patricia Foley. Grant's wife. I'd met her at firm parties. Elegant, quiet, the kind of woman who noticed everything but said little. Apparently, she'd been doing some detective work of her own. I texted back, "Thank you. I'm sorry you're dealing with this too." Her response came immediately. "We should talk. Are you free for coffee?" An hour later, I sat across from Patricia Foley at a Starbucks in Cambridge, far from downtown Boston and the legal community where both our spouses worked. She was smaller than I remembered, mid-40s with graying hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "How long have you known?" she asked without preamble. "She told me last night. You?" "I've suspected for months. Grant's been working late, traveling more, buying new clothes. Classic signs." She sipped her latte. "I hired a private investigator last week." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "I thought you might want copies." The photos were damning. Lila and Grant entering the Ritz-Carlton, leaving together the next morning, holding hands at an expensive restaurant. The timestamps showed this had been going on for at least 3 months. "The investigator says they have a regular suite," Patricia continued. "Every Tuesday and Thursday, plus some weekends. Your wife pays for it with a credit card in her name." "My credit card," I realized. "We have joint accounts." "Not anymore, apparently. My lawyer says she's been moving money around, setting up separate accounts. She's planning to leave you, Matt. This isn't an affair. It's an exit strategy." I studied the photos, seeing my wife's face glowing with happiness as she looked at another man. "What are you going to do?" "Divorce him. Take him for everything I can. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids in college, he's not walking away from this unscathed." Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "The question is, what are you going to do?" I thought about Lila's casual confession, her talk of arrangements, the way she'd drained our accounts while I was playing pranks. "I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for," I said finally. "Honesty." I drove home to find chaos. The front door was wide open, and I could see furniture overturned through the windows. My first thought was burglary, but then I saw Lila's BMW in the driveway. Inside, the house looked like a tornado had hit it. Our wedding photos lay smashed on the floor, glass scattered across the hardwood. The couch cushions were slashed, stuffing everywhere. My clothes were piled on the front porch, soaking in the afternoon drizzle. Lila stood in the living room, breathing hard, her perfect hair disheveled. She'd changed from her gym clothes into a black dress, probably for another romantic lunch with Grant. "Feel better?" I asked, stepping carefully around the broken glass. "You had me followed," she screamed. "How dare you violate my privacy?" I looked around at the destroyed room. I'm not the one with privacy issues here. That woman called me, Grant's wife. She threatened me, said she had photos. Patricia seems nice. Very thorough. Lila's face was flushed with rage. "You had no right. What I do with Grant is none of your business. Actually, what you do with our joint credit cards is very much my business. 12 grand for hotel rooms, really? That money was mine too." Was. Past tense. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Funny thing about joint accounts, they require both signatures to close. I spent the afternoon at the bank. Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." "Already did. Also canceled the credit cards, changed the locks, and had your car towed." "My car's in the driveway." "Check the registration. It's in my name, remember? Wedding gift from my parents." I smiled. "The tow truck should be here any minute." As if on cue, we heard the rumble of a diesel engine outside. Through the window, I watched a flatbed truck position itself behind Lila's BMW. "You can't do this!" she shrieked. "I live here." "Not anymore. House is in my name too. Bought it before we got married. You might want to call Grant, see if he has room at his place. Oh wait, he's married too, isn't he?" The tow truck driver knocked on the door. I handed him the keys and paperwork, then watched as he loaded up the BMW. Lila stood frozen, apparently just realizing how thoroughly she'd been outmaneuvered. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "Hotel, maybe?" I hear the Ritz has nice suites. Of course, you'll need a credit card. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped. This isn't over, Matt. No, it's not, but the next move is yours. After she left, I called Dave. He arrived 20 minutes later with a six-pack and a toolbox, ready to help clean up the mess. She really went nuclear, didn't she? He said, surveying the damage. This was just the opening act. She's probably calling her lawyer right now. We spent the evening cleaning up glass and assessing the damage. Most of it was cosmetic, slashed cushions, broken picture frames, overturned furniture. The important stuff was locked in my office safe. You know she's going to come back with reinforcements, Dave said, replacing a broken lamp. I'm counting on it. Around 9 p.m., my phone started buzzing. First Lila, then Grant, then numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were predictably dramatic. Lila threatening legal action, Grant demanding I act like a man and discuss this reasonably, various friends and colleagues who'd apparently heard some version of the story. The best message came from Sabrina, Lila's best friend and fellow social climber. Matt, honey, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't like you. Lila's devastated. Call me. I deleted them all without responding. Dave cracked another beer. So what's the plan? Phase 1 was defensive. Protect my assets, cut off her resources. Phase 2 is information gathering. I want to know everything about this affair, how long it's been going on, who else knows. And Phase 3? I looked around at my destroyed living room, thinking about Lila's casual confession and her talk of arrangements. Phase 3 is education. She wanted honesty. She's going to get a graduate-level course. The next morning, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, a blue-collar Irish bar that served as the unofficial gossip central for our neighborhood. The regulars were already in place, retired cops, construction workers, guys who'd lived in the area for decades and knew everyone's business. "Matt Kavanaugh," called out Tommy Murphy, the owner. "Haven't seen you in here for a while." "Been busy. Mind if I join you, gentlemen?" For the next hour, I nursed a beer and listened to the local intelligence network. It was amazing what people knew when they bothered to pay attention. Mrs. Dugan, my elderly neighbor, had seen Grant's Porsche in my driveway multiple times over the past few months, always when I was traveling for work. The mailman had noticed Lila getting deliveries from expensive boutiques, way more than usual. The guy who serviced our pool had seen her sunbathing with some tall guy in a fancy suit. "That Grant Foley's got quite the reputation," said Mickey, a retired detective. "My nephew works security at the Ritz. Says Foley's been bringing different women there for years. Always young lawyers from his firm." "Serial cheater," agreed Tommy. "My ex-wife worked at his law firm back in the day. Said he was handsy with all the female employees." I filed away every detail, building a complete picture of Grant's pattern of behavior. This wasn't a love affair. It was predatory behavior, and Lila was just the latest victim. Except she didn't see herself as a victim. She saw herself as special. That afternoon, I drove to Grant's apartment building, a luxury high-rise in Back Bay with a doorman and valet parking. Patricia's investigator had provided the address along with Grant's daily routine. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my car across the street, watching the building and thinking. Grant lived alone during the week. His family was in their suburban house, which meant this was probably where he brought his conquests. My phone rang. "Lila." "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me at Starbucks on Newberry Street." "The one where you used to meet Grant for coffee? I don't think so." Silence. Then, "How did you—" "Never mind. Where do you want to meet?" "Murphy's Tavern. 1 hour." She was already there when I arrived, looking out of place in her designer suit among the working-class regulars. Several of the guys recognized her from neighborhood events and nodded politely, but I could see the curiosity in their eyes. "This is humiliating," she hissed as I sat down. "Is it? I find it refreshing. No pretense, no performance. Just honest conversation. Tommy brought me a beer without being asked. Mrs. Kavanagh, can I get you anything? White wine, she said automatically, then caught herself. Actually, just water. We sat in uncomfortable silence until Tommy returned with her drink. Around us, the normal bar chatter continued, but I could feel people listening. I want to come home, Lila said finally. Home to what? The house you destroyed? The marriage you ended? Or just the financial security you threw away? I made a mistake. Grant and I, it's complicated. It's really not. You're sleeping with your married boss and using our money to pay for hotel rooms. Pretty straightforward. She flinched. Could you keep your voice down? Why? Worried about your reputation? Little late for that, don't you think? Mickey, the retired cop, raised his beer in my direction. Good for you, Matt. About time somebody stood up to the lawyers. Lila's face went white. This is exactly why we can't talk here. Where would you prefer? Your love nest at the Ritz? Grant's apartment? Oh, wait, I forgot. You don't have access to those anymore. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her a text from Patricia Foley. Grant's been suspended from the firm pending investigation. Apartment lease terminated. He's staying at a motel on Route 1. Lila stared at the screen. That's impossible. Patricia's husband made some calls. Turns out the senior partners don't appreciate their employees using company resources for personal entertainment. Something about liability and harassment lawsuits. But Grant lied about everything. The apartment, corporate housing, the fancy dinners, client development account, the hotel suite, firm credit card. You weren't his girlfriend, Lila. You were a business expense. She sat back in her chair, the reality finally sinking in. Around us, the bar had gone quiet. Even the most polite eavesdropping had limits. I need to call him, she said, reaching for her phone. Good luck with that. Patricia says he's not taking calls. For the first time since this whole mess started, Lila looked genuinely shaken. The confident, successful attorney was gone, replaced by a woman who was just beginning to understand how badly she'd been played. What happens now? She asked quietly. I finished my beer and stood up. Now you figure out what that arrangement you wanted actually looks like. Spoiler alert, it doesn't include me. 3 days later, I was having coffee with Patricia Foley when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all lighting up simultaneously. Looks like the video went live, Patricia said, checking her own phone. The night before, Lila had thrown what she called a girls' night at Sabrina's house, apparently trying to rally support and control the narrative about our separation. What she didn't know was that Sabrina had been recording everything, planning to share the juicy details with her social media followers. The video was brutal. Lila, clearly having had too much wine, ranting about how I'd stolen her car and manipulated the bank accounts. She called me controlling, vindictive, and several other choice words that probably violated her professional code of conduct. But the real damage came when she started talking about Grant. He promised me we'd be together. She slurred into Sabrina's camera. Said his marriage was over anyway, that we were soulmates. Now, he won't even return my calls. The comments section was ruthless. Our mutual friends, neighbors, even some of her professional colleagues weighed in. The consensus was not favorable. This is better than reality TV, Patricia said, scrolling through the responses. Look at this one. Imagine throwing away a 15-year marriage for a guy who dumps you the moment things get complicated. My phone rang. Dave. Dude, your wife is trending on local Twitter. Lila Kavanagh is getting brutal. I had nothing to do with this, I said, though I couldn't deny feeling satisfied. I know. That's what makes it so perfect. She's destroying herself. After Patricia left, I spent the afternoon monitoring the social media explosion. The video had been shared hundreds of times, and each share brought new commentary. Some people defended Lila, calling the public shaming cruel, but they were vastly outnumbered by those who saw her as a cautionary tale about entitlement and poor judgment. Around 4 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a process server with divorce papers. Matthew Kavanaugh? That's me. The papers were professionally prepared, clearly expensive. Lila was demanding half of everything: the house, my retirement accounts, spousal support, even my consulting business. She was also claiming emotional distress and requesting a restraining order. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, who specialized in complex divorces. "She's fishing," Rebecca said after reviewing the documents. "The restraining order request is particularly weak. She can't prove harassment when she's the one who destroyed your house and drained your accounts." "What about the other demands?" "We'll fight everything. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, not automatic 50-50. Given her affair and the financial misconduct, we have a strong position." That evening, I decided to attend the monthly charity auction at the country club. Lila and I had been members for 5 years, and I wasn't about to let her affair drive me into hiding. The reaction was immediate and uncomfortable. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Some people offered awkward condolences, others pretended not to see me. The video had clearly made its rounds through our social circle. "Matt," Sabrina appeared at my elbow, wearing a tight red dress and too much perfume. "I'm so glad you came. We need to talk." "Do we?" "About Lila. She's not handling this well. Maybe you could call her, work things out privately." I looked at Sabrina, Lila's supposed best friend, who'd recorded and shared her drunken breakdown for social media points. "Interesting suggestion coming from you." She had the grace to look embarrassed. "That video, I didn't mean for it to go viral. I thought it would just be funny for our friend group." "Right. Just a little harmless humiliation among friends." "Lila's talking about leaving town, starting over somewhere else. Is that really what you want?" Before I could answer, the auction began. I found a seat near the back and tried to blend in, but I could feel eyes on me throughout the evening. The awkward glances, the whispered conversations. This was my life now, being the subject of small-town gossip. Halfway through the auction, Grant appeared. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He scanned the room until he spotted me, then started walking over with obvious intent. "We need to talk," he said, looming over my table. "I don't think we do. You've destroyed my career, my marriage, my reputation. Are you satisfied?" I stood up, aware that half the room was watching. Grant was bigger than me, but he looked unsteady, probably drunk. "I didn't destroy anything, Grant. You did that yourself." By falling in love? By finding happiness with someone who actually understood me? By using company resources to conduct an affair? By lying to your wife for months? By manipulating my wife into thinking you were leaving your family for her? His face flushed. Lila knew what this was. Did she? Because that video suggests otherwise. Grant stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You think you've won something? You think this is over?" "I think you should go home, Grant, to whatever motel you're staying at these days." For a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightened. But then he seemed to remember where we were, surrounded by lawyers and judges and other members of Boston's legal community. "This isn't finished," he said quietly. "Yes, it is." He stalked out, leaving me standing in a room full of staring faces. I sat back down and tried to focus on the auction, but my hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. After the event, I was walking to my car when I heard heels clicking on the pavement behind me. "Matt, wait." I turned to find Lila approaching, wearing the black dress she'd had on the day she destroyed our house. She looked exhausted, older somehow. "We can't keep doing this," she said. "The lawyers, the public drama, the social media circus. It's destroying both of us. You started this, Lila. You wanted honesty, remember? I wanted us to be adults about it. I didn't want this. She gestured vaguely at the country club, the scene with Grant, the whole mess our lives had become. What did you think would happen? That I'd just accept your arrangement and pretend everything was normal? I thought you'd fight for me, for us. I stared at her, genuinely confused. Fight for you. You told me you slept with another man and didn't regret it. You drained our bank accounts and destroyed our house. What exactly was I supposed to fight for? Our marriage. Our life together. 15 years, Matt. That has to count for something. It did count for something. Until you decided it didn't. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I made a mistake. Can't we find a way past this? For just a moment, I felt sorry for her. This was the woman I'd married, the one I'd loved for 15 years. But then I remembered her casual confession, her talk of arrangements, the way she'd tried to clean me out financially. The way past this is through divorce court, I said gently. You made your choice, Lila. Now we both have to live with it. I left her standing in the parking lot and drove home, feeling oddly empty. The anger was gone, replaced by something that felt like grief. Not for what we'd lost, but for what we'd apparently never really had. 2 weeks later, I was debugging code at my home office when Dave called with news that changed everything. You need to see this, he said. I'm sending you a link. The video was grainy, clearly shot with a phone from across a restaurant, but the subjects were unmistakable. Grant and Sabrina, Lila's supposed best friend, locked in a passionate embrace at an upscale bistro downtown. When was this taken? I asked. Last night. My buddy Rick was there with his wife, recognized them both. Says they were all over each other, acting like teenagers. I watched the video again, pieces clicking into place. Sabrina's sudden interest in helping Lila and me reconcile. Her convenient recording of Lila's breakdown. The way she'd been asking questions about the divorce proceedings. How long do you think this has been going on? I asked. Rick says he's seen them together before. Thinks it started before your whole mess blew up. Before. Which meant Lila hadn't just been betrayed by her husband and her lover. She'd been betrayed by her best friend, too. The woman she'd been confiding in, crying to, asking for support, had been sleeping with Grant the entire time. I called Patricia Foley. I need to show you something, I said. An hour later, we sat in her car outside Grant's motel, watching him load suitcases into Sabrina's Mercedes. They were clearly planning a trip together, probably hoping to escape the local drama until things cooled down. Unbelievable, Patricia muttered. Even for Grant, this is low. What's your next move? My lawyer's going to love this. Adultery with multiple partners, abandonment, dissipation of marital assets. Grant's going to be lucky to keep his law license, let alone any money. As we watched, Grant and Sabrina drove away, probably heading to some romantic getaway funded by whatever resources they had left. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. They deserved each other. Are you going to tell Lila? Patricia asked. I thought about it. Lila was staying at a hotel downtown, trying to rebuild her life and her career. Learning that her best friend had been sleeping with Grant would be devastating. She deserves to know, I said finally. That evening, I called Lila and asked her to meet me at Murphy's Tavern. She arrived looking hopeful, probably thinking I'd changed my mind about reconciliation. Thank you for calling, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. I've been thinking about what you said, about choices and consequences. Maybe we can find a way. Lila, stop. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. I need you to see this. She watched in silence, her face going through a series of expressions, confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, devastation. When? She whispered. Dave's friend thinks it's been going on for months. Probably started before you and Grant got together. She stared at the phone screen, tears starting to flow. Sabrina knew. She knew about Grant and me, and she was with him too? Looks that way. All those nights I called her, crying about you, about Grant, about how confused I was. She listened to everything, gave me advice, told me I deserved better. Lila's voice was getting louder, drawing attention from other patrons. She recorded that video of me, made me look like an idiot, and the whole time she was sleeping with him? I'm sorry, Lila. I know this is hard to hear. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Hard to hear? Matt, I trusted her. She was my best friend, my maid of honor. I told her things I never told anyone. Around us, the bar had gone quiet again. Tommy Murphy approached our table cautiously. Everything okay here? Fine, I said. Could we get some water? Lila was spiraling, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. Not only had she destroyed her marriage for a man who didn't really want her, but her closest friend had been manipulating and betraying her the entire time. What am I supposed to do now? She asked. My career is damaged, my reputation is shot, my marriage is over, and now I find out my best friend was stabbing me in the back? You rebuild, I said. You figure out who you really are without Grant, without Sabrina, without the life you thought you wanted. And us? Is there any chance for us? I looked at her across the table, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, but something fundamental had broken between us, something that couldn't be fixed with apologies or explanations. No, I said gently. There's not. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. I had to ask. We sat in silence for a while, drinking water and avoiding eye contact. Finally, Lila stood up. I'm going to find them, she said. Grant and Sabrina, I'm going to tell them exactly what I think of their little arrangement. Lila, don't. You'll just make things worse for yourself. Worse? How could things possibly be worse? She had a point. At least let me drive you, I offered. You're too upset to be behind the wheel. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, I don't want to see you get hurt any more than you already have been. We drove in silence to the Marriott downtown, where Dave's friend had tracked Grant and Sabrina. I waited in the lobby while Lila went upstairs, not sure if I was hoping for drama or resolution. 20 minutes later, she came back down, looking oddly calm. How did it go? I asked. They weren't there. Checked out this morning, apparently heading to the Caribbean. She sat down heavily in a lobby chair. The desk clerk said they seemed very happy together. I'm sorry. Don't be. You know what I realized up there? I was angrier about Sabrina than about Grant. Isn't that strange? Not really. Grant was always going to disappoint you eventually, but Sabrina was supposed to be your friend. She was more than that. She was like a sister, and she played me perfectly, encouraged the affair, recorded my breakdown, probably laughed about it with Grant afterward. We sat in the hotel lobby, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now just trying to figure out how to move forward separately. The divorce papers, Lila said finally. I'm going to withdraw most of the demands. Keep it simple, clean. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I caused this mess. I should be the one to clean it up. A month later, we signed the final papers in Rebecca's office. Lila kept her retirement account and some personal items. I kept the house, my business, and most of our shared assets. It was fair, given the circumstances. Any regrets? She asked as we walked out of the lawyer's office. About the divorce? No. About the way it happened? Yes. Me too. She was moving to Portland, Oregon, starting fresh with a small law firm that specialized in environmental cases. A complete change from her corporate practice, but maybe that was what she needed. Take care of yourself, Matt. You too, Lila. I watched her walk away, disappearing into the crowd of downtown Boston, and felt something like closure. Not happiness, exactly, but peace. The anger was gone, replaced by something that might eventually become forgiveness. That evening I sat on my back deck with a beer, watching the sunset and thinking about second chances. My phone buzzed with a text from Dave. "Dinner tomorrow? I know a place with great fish and chips." "Sounds perfect," I texted back. The house felt different now, quieter, but not empty. Just different. I'd kept most of the furniture, replaced the slashed cushions, hung new pictures on the walls. It was still home, just a different version of it. My laptop chimed with an email notification, a potential new client asking about a website redesign. Work was good, steady, growing. I'd always been better at building things than tearing them down. I finished my beer and went inside, ready to start whatever came next. The story was over, but the life that came after it was just beginning.